sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6 beer. Intense by nature. And Laraque. If the last time you went to Laraque was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Laraque. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, and welcome on this Thursday, February 2nd, and the Montreal Canadiens are going to be back in action not this Saturday, but next Saturday, because, of course, this weekend is NHL All Stars weekend, and the NHL skills competition will take place tomorrow night. The All Star game will take place on Saturday night, and earlier today was NHL Media Day, where several of the NHL All Stars were live on the terrace of a beautiful hotel in South Florida. And my buddy Jeremy Filosa of 98.5 FM will join me probably in about 25 minutes time to tell me who he talked to earlier today, what came up, what was discussed. I'm really looking forward to that. It's the Sick Podcast, brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. And if you're in transportation sales, customer service, operations, HR, or admin, well, the good news is Energy Transportation Group is hiring for all positions. I've had a chance to hang out at their company on more than one occasion, and let me tell you that if I was looking for a job, they'd probably be one of the first places that I'd knock on their door, because every time I walk in, everyone has a smile on their face, and that's usually a very good sign. You can't fake those things. You can't. You can see right through people. You can't fake those things. Those smiles are legitimate. Also brought to you in part by 8.6 beer. You see it right here. This is the India Pale Lager. It's a 7%, and it's intense by nature, like me, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. And brought to you by Laraque. If the last time you went to Laraque was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you go back to Laraque. The menu will surprise you. As a matter of fact, I went on my Laraque app earlier today, and I was leaving TVA Sport, and I said, I'm going to pick up some Laraque and bring it home. And I went onto my app. I placed my order. It told me it would be ready in 30 minutes time. By the time I left downtown Montreal and I got there, I said, I'm here to pick up my order. 2 minutes later, they gave me my order. I was on my way, and we were pretty happy tonight in the Marinaro household because we ate some pretty good food from Laraque. Without further ado, I bring in my guest. He's a collaborator every Thursday. I haven't had a nickname for him up until now, but I finally found a nickname. Are you ready? This is it. It is George 20 minutes, bro. Laraque. Okay. Hold on a second. You're gonna do me a favor. You sound like you're talking through a garbage can. I let you do it last week. I let you do it the week before. You know, it's funny because I was gonna personally deliver you a microphone, and we just got the microphone, I think, today, and I wasn't able to make it. But tomorrow, I'm personally delivering the microphone, because when you join me next week, it's a mic by Tascam. It's amazing, and it hooks directly into your phone. It's unbelievable. I tested it. It's unbelievable, and it's going to change your life and my life. I'm almost scared to ask you to speak now because I have a feeling the sound's still going to be bad. Speak.
Okay, how does it feel right now?
It's better.
It's good. Okay, I put both earplugs in.
Okay. No, it's not good again. Oh my God, George, you killed me.
That's something else.
How is it that I have like 10, 15, 20
Okay, how's
collaborators?
that?
1 second. 1 second. I have a question.
Tony,
Pat.
how's that?
It's better. It's better.
This is good?
Yes. But, for me, it's mind-boggling that on the Sick podcast, I have 15 collaborators, give or take. The one who played in the National Hockey League, who's the only one who made millions, his sound is the worst. It doesn't make sense.
Tell me what mic to get. I'll get it. You don't have to send it to me.
Okay. No, we got it already. We got it. And we got it for many of our collaborators. As a matter of fact, pretty much whoever has a mic problem, we got it for them. And I'm going to personally deliver it to you tomorrow. Okay? Are you going to be at the...
Send it to the station. I'll be there.
You'll be at the station tomorrow? Okay.
Yes.
So if I don't personally deliver it, I'll have somebody deliver it. But tomorrow you're going to get the mic. It plugs into your phone. It's absolutely amazing. This guy is the best. He played in the... How many years did you play in the NHL?
13 years.
13 years. He made millions. He's got millions in the bank. He owns restaurants. He owns cart store. He owns every single business you could think of. The worst sound is his.
Send me the bill and I'll pay for it, man.
You're not paying for nothing. We got it. We're going to give it to you. We're happy to give it to you. All right?
I know, but
and
if you're wondering, forever. If I don't pay for it, I'll hear about it from you forever. I'd rather pay for it.
And if you're wondering where the 20 minutes bro comes from, we send George the link. He asks for the link to come on the podcast. We give him the link. And then as soon as we connect in our internal chat, in our private chat, there's 20 minutes, bro, LOL. It's been the same thing for the last 4 times we've talked. So
because
tonight, officially on Thursday, February 2nd, he is now known as George 20 minutes, bro, Laraque.
But Tony, otherwise we're going to talk for an hour and usually I sleep at this time.
I hear you. Okay, so
hey,
let's do this.
Do it at 9 and I'll talk to you for an hour. At 10, it's late, man.
Okay, let's talk for 20. But not Canadian, not U.S., not European, 20 pounds. All right, okay. Believe it or not, I have a lot to talk to you about, even though the Canadians are off.
Okay.
If it's not one of your collaborators that keeps on making the news on your show because he's trading every 18-year-old prospect every year, he's trading one. If it's not him, and he's my buddy and I love him and I miss him, if it's not him, it's you. What did you say yesterday on BPM Spot about Rafaël Harvey-Pinard? What did you say?
What I said about him is I said that I don't think that is in a plan to be in the roster next year.
You're crazy.
Next season in October. I said the only way he's going to, because what people have to understand is that right now he has a lot of ice time because of injuries and because there's a lot of people missing and he has an opportunity now and stuff and he's shining. But the only way that he's going to have a chance is, after the All-Star break, game is going to be way harder, way tougher because team is going to be fighting for a playoff spot. If he's having success after the All-Star break and he's forcing the Canadian hands, we have a chance to see him next year. But,
he's ready, George. George, you know that. He's ready. And it's not because he scored 5 goals in the last week, George. It's because he's playing better at the National Hockey League level than he did in the American Hockey League level, which leads me to believe that he's not playing with good enough players down there, and playing with better players, he's playing better hockey. He's a prototypical 4th liner for sure. He plays with heart. He plays with passion. He plays with energy. He works hard. He's going to be on an entry-level contract. He's from La Belle Province. He wears the jersey with a lot of pride. I'm not going to get carried away and start telling you that he's going to be a first liner on this team next year, because obviously what we've seen for him, this is not him. Because if this is going to be him, he's going to be one of the best players in the league. And we know that is very, very highly unlikely. But you don't think that Rafaël Harvey-Pinard has at least made his niche to show that he's going to be on the Canadiens' 4th line at the very least next year, especially considering not only the way he's playing, but the fact that Dadonov will no longer be here, Drouin will no longer be here, Monahan will no longer be here? You don't think he's going to be on this team next year, George?
The thing is that there's a couple games that he played, and as I said, he's going to have to maintain this till the rest of the season. 2 games, 5 games doesn't make a career. 5 games doesn't make a decision for next year. What I was saying when I was talking about it is that he was not in the Canadian plans until we see him recently. He was not in the plan. He was not in the top 4 lines. But the way that he's playing now, he's opening up their eyes, and they're going to see what he's made of. They give him some minutes, and he's producing, and it's good. But again, remember, it's Ottawa. Ottawa is not good. Ottawa is struggling. They don't have any goalie. They might not make the playoff. I'm going to tell you, let's have this discussion in 20 games. Let's see, because hockey is going to be much harder. The last stretch of the regular season is the hardest. Let's see when they play tough teams. Let's see how he does against these teams, and then we'll see.
Perfect. But why don't we talk, George? Why don't we do this, though? You know what this conversation has started to remind me of? Don't get me wrong, okay? It's 2 different players, but I need you to hear me out, please, before you to spite and kush, okay? You remember at the World Juniors when Connor Bedard was picking up 7 points? Everyone was saying, yeah, but he's playing against easy teams. Why doesn't he do it against the hard teams, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't anyone else pick up 7 points? So now you're telling me, Tony, he's playing easy games. Okay. Everybody else is playing easy games too, George.
No, but
George,
Tony,
he's got 5 more goals than Drouin.
Tony, I'm not disputing the fact that the guy is working hard. And Drouin's not going to be back here next year.
Correct.
You're looking at a GM that is building a team because they need a future core that will be surrounded by veterans to make the playoff, to win the cup, right? Ultimately, that's the goal. So all I'm saying is that so far, he put himself in a position to get a really good look, more ice time, really good chance, and we'll see how long he could do. If he does this till the end of the season, he'll be there next year. But it's way too much premature after 7 games to say he's worked his way himself into next roster next year. It's too early. It's not enough games yet. We'll see what he's going to do till the end of the season.
Perfect. As a guy who knows the importance of a 4th line, which is an energy line, and I realize he's not the biggest player, and he's not 6'3", and he's not 220. I get that. But he's persistent. He's determined. He's in pursuit of the puck. He chases down the puck. He's aggressive on the forecheck. Once again, he plays with that energy. Isn't he exactly what you would want? And especially on a team that wants to start shaving salary off the cap, and he comes in at an entry level as well. I mean, and don't you find he brings the best out of Pezzetta, and Pezzetta brings the best out of him, and he brings the best out of Belzile, and Belzile brings the best out of him. And I'm not saying Pezzetta is going to be here next year. I don't know. I'm not saying Belzile is going to be here next year. I don't know. But I'm willing to bet that RHP will be. I really am.
But and we all know that this line, when they were together, was the best line in Montreal Canadiens. They played the hardest. They're hard to play against. Look at all the hits Pezzetta was having every game. 7 hits, 6 hits. Pezzetta in 3-4 games had more hit than the entire team since like a long time. It's amazing the way that they've been clicking together. And now, Harvey-Pinard got a promotion with the top line. He deserves it. It's because of work ethic, man. But Tony, I love the way that he plays. I love him. He reminds me of a healthy Gallagher. And I hope he could keep it up. I hope, we need French Canadian on this team to make in a roster spot. But, a lot of people make judgment after 5 games. I say, let's wait till the end of the season, and we'll see what he does. And if he could keep it up, even against tougher teams.
What is it with you and pillows exactly? Do you have a fetish or something?
It's because when it's close to my bedtime, that's why I have a pillow and stuff to lay down to. As soon as we're done, I lay right down and I'm dead. I'm sleeping.
That's what it's a pillow with polka dots, or what is
No, there's no Pokemon, no dots, nothing in it. I'll send you. Since you're sending me a mic, I'll send you a pillow, Tony.
My God, what are you're gonna start doing advertisement for the pillows like the other guy? What's his name? My pillow guy. You're gonna start doing the same thing or what? I don't know. Where are you? Are you at home or are you in a hotel room?
Yeah, I am. And that's why I'm like in the living room, and then but at this time,
Oh, you're in the living room right now. You're not on the bed.
Yeah, and that's why. And I get up so early, Tony. That's why it's like, we do it 9 o'clock next year. 9 o'clock, the Sick Puck Fest.
Yeah, and what happens when the Canadians are playing from 7 to 9:30? What do? We go on at 9.
After the game, 9:30 then, right after the game's done.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you know what? 9:30 is not a bad thing. It's just that some games go after 9:30, and then some games go to overtime,
No,
and some games go to a
then we wait
shootout.
after the game.
And
We wait after the game.
starting shows on the 30 is usually not ideal. Hey, your buddy, who of course you work with at BPM Sport, your buddy Jean-Charles Lajoie. Speaking of Rafaël Harvey-Pinard, he mentioned something to me the other day, and he said to me, "Why can't Harvey-Pinard be the Burrows for the Sedins?" And I said, Jean-Charles, walk before we run here. Take it easy. And he goes, well, why not? Why not? You know, you go in the corners and this and that. So he says to me, he says, why can't Harvey-Pinard be playing on a line with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield last season? And I said, he says, is it impossible? And I said, no, it's not impossible. But I said, there's two things you need to know. Number one, I said, even though your heart's in the right place, and I know you want kids from here to play here, and you want the whole team to be kids from here, that's fine. And that's honorable. But I said to him, I don't think you're doing the kid a favor or any of these kids a favor. When they come up, they play 3-4 games, they do well. You start saying that you want them on the first line because you know what? It's too much added pressure for no reason. Let's just see how it goes. Okay. And then I said to him, he said, is it possible? Yes or no? I said, it's possible. Anything's possible. But if you want my opinion, it's going to be no. And he said, why? And I said, do you think the Canadiens' number one line is going to be 5'11" Nick Suzuki with 5'7" Cole Caulfield and 5'9" Rafaël Harvey-Pinard? I don't see it happening. So I said it would be a really easy line to play against when the Canadiens are on the road. So I said, I'm going to stick with the guy that's going to end up being on that line going forward. I don't know if it's going to be next year, but the guy is going to be Slafkovsky.
Oh, man. Oh, you're crazy. Come on, man. Slafkovsky right now with the development, he's so much behind.
Slafkovsky one day, not now and not even next year. One day, Slafkovsky is not going to be the winger for Suzuki and Caulfield?
Never. No, I
And
don't
was
see
he too, George? George, you're spending too much time with your head on that pillow. Need to
Tony,
pick your head up, start breathing a little bit.
Tony,
You need oxygen.
Tony, you know what I would do with Slafkovsky? I would put him on a package to go get Dubois. I don't want him here anymore. I'm serious, Tony.
Oh, George, you no, they've changed you. George, you have to go
Tony,
back.
I'm serious.
George, they've ruined you. I don't know what happened. You've been hypnotized. They got into your brain. George, this whole city is talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois. George, we have to stop. You're trading 18-year-old Juraj Slafkovsky
For Dubois.
who's in his first season.
Yeah.
Who has
For
a
Dubois.
pedigree that's incredible. Who's 6'4", 220 and 230 on an entry-level contract.
And that gets rocked by midgets. He's getting hit all over the place. He can't stand on his feet.
Because the NHL goes fast. You have to give him a chance to learn. George, are you serious? You're going to trade
6'4".
Slafkovsky already for Dubois. Why? The Canadiens are going to win the Cup next year with Dubois.
No. Dubois is 24.
He's part of the rebuild plan. This is it. It's beautiful. They're young. They're going to grow together. You want to take arguably one of their top 3 prospects in the organization. He's played 45 games.
Yeah.
You want to trade him already.
I would trade him for Dubois. First of all, Dubois is only 24
You made me
years
ruin
old.
all of my Tascam equipment, which is supplied by Ericsson Audio, the choice of musicians, engineers, and broadcast professionals, George. I have water all over my board. I can't believe this.
Tony, listen to me.
Not to mention, and I'll make you finish now, but I just want you to know that tomorrow I'm going to dread when I watch this on YouTube and I see water coming out of my nose. It's still leaking, George.
Tony, listen to me. Dubois is 24 years old. He's an incredible player. He will be the first superstar for the Montreal Canadiens, first French superstar since José Theodore. He could join a core of guys that you could build your team around. You have a big guy in there in a small team, which is going to help you. Your line at center is done. You have a guy that's going to help you now. And again, Slav is a project, but God. I don't see him be a top line one day, Tony. Too much disappointment. The other day, we were watching a practice. He was learning.
I'm sure you would have said the same thing about Paige Thompson 4 years ago.
Listen, he was learning in practice how to keep his head up, like during drills, because his head is always down. He always gets rocked.
Want me to explain it to you? He's been the biggest player that he's played with and against for several years now, like Eric Lindros was. And those players, they have unfortunately a very bad habit of skating with their head down because they just plow over guys. You enter a league that's very fast and you get some guys as big as you, and you can't do that. So they're trying to break a habit. So that's why Kent Hughes said, imagine you don't walk straight and your right foot is outward and your left foot is inward. And I ask you to change the way you walk. And then I ask you not only to change the way you walk, but I ask you to juggle 3 balls at the same time. And then I put you on the highway to do that. You're going to get hit. He was talking about Slafkovsky, and the game's going too fast for a guy who has a bad habit.
Tony.
George, he's 18 years old. He's 4 months into his NHL career. You want to give up on him already. In 2 or 3 years, you're going to watch this podcast. You're going to be embarrassed you said this.
Tony, how could you say that it's given up when I talk about traded him about one of the top centers in the NHL with Dubois? How could you say it's given up? I didn't say give him away for nothing. Dubois is a hell of a player. Are you kidding me? Like, you know how many players...
He has the potential to be free in a year and a half, and you could pick him up without giving up anything in return.
Tony, listen to this, and I'm going to enter this to you and to everybody listening, okay?
Please.
Everybody is thinking that the Jets are stupid. The Jets, Winnipeg Jets are dumb. They're going to agree to sign him for 1 year so you become unrestricted, so you lose him for nothing. They're so dumb. They're going to trade him at the draft to a team that he agreed to do an extension, and that way they're going to get the maximum they get out of him. They're not just going to get him 1 year and wait he's unrestricted and trade him, because even if they trade him at the trade deadline next year because he's unrestricted after, they won't get as much as if they trade him at the draft to a team that is agreed to sign an extension. Yes, he said he wants to play in Montreal, but how many French Canadians have said that, Tony, and they didn't do it? Briere did it. Le Cavalier did it. They used the Canadian to raise up the ante. So all I'm saying is that his agent, when he talks to the Jets, they're going to give a few teams they'll agree to go to and sign an extension. He will sign an extension by the draft, Tony. So everybody's thinking, oh, we're going to get him for free. People already think that the plan is done and the Jets going to sign him for 1 year. And after that, he's done, so we'll get him for free. Come on, Tony. Teams are not dumb. They're going to try to get as much as they can for him. And the Jets, there's no way they're losing him for nothing. Come on, man.
Canadians lost Radulov for nothing. It happens.
Yeah, because everybody thought he was going to sign again in Montreal. Because what did he do? He talked about how much he loved Montreal. And everybody's like, oh, my God, finally somebody that loves Montreal. And what did he do?
Okay.
He got Montreal, gave him the same offer as the Dallas Stars, and he signed in Dallas. He wanted nothing to do here.
Okay. Now, you ready for this? I'm going to ask you some questions. By the way, I love the fact that you're very opinionated, okay? It's absolutely fantastic, okay? It didn't feel good when water came out of my nose. I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to answer them, and we're going to go real fast, all right? Okay. Do the Montreal Canadiens have goaltending to put them over the top? If you had to say yes or no, you'd say what?
Oh, my God, no. They don't.
Perfect.
They need goaltending.
Do the Montreal Canadiens have a defense core right away to put them over the top in the next couple of years? Yes or no?
No.
Perfect. Do the Montreal Canadiens have a quarterback on the power play? Yes or no?
No.
Do the Montreal Canadiens, if Doc stays at center, have a right winger that can complement the line of Caulfield and Suzuki? Okay, perfect. Are the Canadiens big enough at the forward position and tough enough to be able to go very, very far in the playoffs? Yes or no? Okay. So if the Canadiens are missing all of these pieces, George Laraque, why would you want to go out, trade a prospect on an entry-level contract, go out and get a player who's in his mid-20s, who's going to want to sign a long-term extension, make big money when you're still missing at least 5 to 6 pieces to be a legitimate Stanley Cup contender?
Okay. Nice setup. Okay. Nice setup to put you in a corner, but you didn't put me in a corner. Can I answer your question?
Yes.
The reason why, Tony, I would trade him is because I do not think that Slafkovsky is going to be a top 6 winger, a top 6 player in the near future. I don't see it in him. I've seen Tony. I played 13 years in the NHL. I've seen rookies. I've seen European guys. I've seen guys coming into the league. I've seen tendencies. I've watched and I've played the game. The way that he plays, the way that he is, the way that he gets hit, the way that he doesn't learn, the way that he's not poised, the way that he is, I don't see it. I don't. And Tony, it's not like that year that he was drafted. It's not like he was rated an exceptional.
George, he's
he didn't
raw.
have an exceptional status.
He's raw, George. George, he's raw, like the food that you eat. You have an appreciation for that. Have an appreciation for him, George. He's raw, George.
Tony, he's a nice kid, okay? I'm not saying that he's not a bad kid. He's a bad kid. He's a nice kid. I just don't see him crack the top 6 with any team in the NHL because he's big.
Thornton didn't look good at 18, eh?
He's Tony. When you're 6'4", you gotta have some kind of grip. Jagr, look, you know what Jagr was when he was this size, when he was 18? How Jagr was protecting the puck. You could hit him. And if you hit Jagr, you got hurt.
George, we're talking about one of the greatest players in the history of the game. Why do we?
No, but I'm talking about. Yeah, but Tony, I'm not talking skill-wise. How Jagr is a goal scorer. I'm talking his body. A European guy that knew how to use his body. I'm not talking Jagr, the goal scorer. We know Slav's never going to be like that. I'm talking about how Jagr knew how to use his body, and he didn't get rocked like that every game. Every time he's on the ice, man, I'm afraid. He's a target. People know he's an open ice in on him because he doesn't know how to protect himself. His head is down all the time. All I'm saying, Tony,
George, he's getting hit because they shouldn't have put him in the National Hockey League this year. In my opinion, they made a mistake.
That's true. That's why they're fucking up his development. We agreed on that, at least, Tony.
Yes, we agree on that.
And now he shouldn't have played in the NHL this year. Now he got hurt. He's going to be behind next year again. He's slow. He's not ready. And if I don't see him be a top 6, trade him for Dubois. Dubois is going to be in his prime for the next 10 years. For the next 10 years, Tony. If he comes in, he's going to be part of the solution with a young core of guys.
Oh, yeah. Dubois is going to be in his prime when he's 35. You're right, George.
No, he's going to, for the next 10 years, I said in the next 10 years, you're going to have the best out of him. And anyway, if he signs, it's going to be 7 years. So 2040 is 31. So I think it's pretty good.
We're going to do this because now you just went from George, 20 minutes, bro, Laraque. You went to George, 27 minutes, bro, Laraque. Okay? We're going to do this. This is the beauty of a podcast, is that unlike the radio, when in radio you say things and sometimes they're not podcasted, they're not cut, the audio's not out. You can end up saying you can deny saying things because the tape.
I'm not denying it. I'm not denying.
No. The beauty of this podcast is this will go in a library. It'll be in the YouTube channel. It'll be here forever. In a couple of years from now, this trade's not going to take place. In a couple of years from now, we're going to go back and we're going to take a look at Juraj Slafkovsky, and you'll have said that, in your opinion, he's not going to be a top 6 player. And all have said that he will, in a couple of years from now, be playing on a line with Caulfield and Suzuki.
Never.
And then we're going to revisit. Okay. And that's the story. In 10 seconds. Is it true that I read something? Did you talk to the Edmonton Oilers about Joel Edmondson? Yes or no?
You're good. You're good, Tony. You're good. You're good.
You must be talking to my wife.
Yeah, your nickname is Rabbit Tony. But yeah, and
Did you talk to the Oilers about Joel Edmondson? Yes or no?
I talked to someone on the team about him. That's what I'll say. I talked to someone that works for the team, and I know that we inquire for a defenseman. And I said that he has a bad back, and I don't think he's going to be able to help a team in the long term because, media has seen him after games with ice pack, hot pack in his back. He's done. Minus 27, worst D-man of the Canadian because of his injury caught up to him. And they need a guy that is reliable that could play, not a guy that is hurt.
So there was a chance there was going to be a trade between the Canadians and the Oilers, and Edmondson was going to be involved, and you told the Oilers, don't touch.
I'm not going to say that if they're not doing it, it's because of that. I just gave my opinion about someone that asked me about him, and I answered. So I wasn't talking to the GM. I speak the truth, Tony. If somebody asks me about a player, I'm going to say what I think. And the guy's always hurt. They might not always see what's going on here. And why would I want someone to get a team that I've played with before, get a player that is done.
Mm-hmm. It would make me laugh if the Oilers would ask you your opinion on Pierre-Luc Dubois. You would tell them to give up McDavid and Draisaitl.
Come on, Tony. Come on.
I'm joking around with George.
First of all, the Oilers, they don't need Dubois. They need a D-man and they need a goalie.
Yeah. No, you're right. Hey, George.
And the Campbell thing, I can't believe it, but believe it or not, like, as much as I thought it was a good signing, it ended up being a disaster.
My God, you made me. Water came out of my nose, man. Water came out of my nose. Ça se peut pas. George, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me today on the Sick Podcast. Love you, buddy.
Thank you,
Have fun with your pillow.
Tony's gone. Ladies and gentlemen, he went down for the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, you're out.
Oh my God. I can't breathe. Oh
Tony's gonna have a hazmat attack. He's the only guy that I know that he laughed himself out of shape.
Oh my God. I can't take it anymore. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, George. I'm so immature. Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me, hold on. Hold on.
What is he doing? Man, that guy is weird, man. What are you doing? Tony, what are you doing? What is this? You copying my style now?
No, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get you one of Pierre-Luc Dubois. I bet you what you're gonna do to it. Stop the show. Stop the show. Call the ambulance. Oh my God.
Give me a pillow of Dubois.
Oh
a pillow in wood.
I'm ordering you a pillow. Hold on a second. You want me to do a Pierre-Luc Dubois with the Canadians or with the Winnipeg Jets? With the Canadians.
With the Canadians.
Oh my God. Okay, George. Have a great night, buddy. Yeah, thank you. Oh my God. Oh my God. Holy jumping. Well, I can't even see straight anymore. Oof, this guy can't do it with me. Him in those pillows. Wow. We have our guy, Jeremy Filosa. Jeremy.
Yes. How are you?
Every time I do this Sick Podcast with him, he's in a hotel room. He's not wearing his shirt. He's not wearing his pants. He's not wearing underwears.
Hey, look at me.
Today he's going up and down on a pillow.
I'm in my underwears, to tell you the truth.
You're in your underwears too?
I'm on the balcony in Florida in my underwear, but I got a shirt on at least.
That's amazing. All right, Jeremy Filosa from 98.5 FM, and you're live in Florida.
Yeah,
and you went down for the NHL All Star Weekend. It was media day today. It's the All Star Skills Competition tomorrow. Yep. It's the All Star Game on Saturday, and CF Montreal is going to play a couple of preseason games in Florida which you're also going to attend for, a podcast that you host along with Gavino Di Falco called IMFC Radio, which I think is fantastic content. I'm a member. I subscribed and I listen and I watch all the time. But let's talk NHL. So today was NHL Media Day.
Yep.
Gary Bettman, I was told he didn't speak. Wasn't he supposed to speak, or am I misinformed here?
Listen, in the notes that we got from the league, there was never any notice about Bettman speaking, but he usually does speak at the All-Star game. He usually takes time in the middle of the season at the All-Star break to give a sort of address to the nation. But this time, it doesn't look like he's going to do it. The thing is, he was in Montreal last week. We had a chance to talk to him. I even told him after the press conference, I said, what are we going to talk about next week in Florida? He goes, I'll make something up. And finally, it doesn't look like he's going to talk to the media at all while he's here. So we got a chance to speak to the players today, but it doesn't look like we're going to get a chance to speak to Bettman before the end of the weekend.
All right. You'd have a feeling that maybe the timing wasn't great for him either. And I know that sponsors are there, and this is basically an event that is for sponsors so that they get all the sponsors down and they have a whole weekend and everyone has a good time. But this is just a couple of days after an article coming out in Sports Business Journal that in year 2 of their TV deal with ESPN and TNT, ratings are down by 22%.
Yeah, that's a massive number, obviously. But the thing that we have to also understand is that there are many more games now that are available to fans. And so that's an average of more than double the amount of games. So in reality, you're going from 475,000 to 370. Yes, it's a drop-off, but when you consider that you have double the amount of games on, it is more eyeballs on your games. But yes, in terms of games, viewership per games, it is down 22%. Is a massive number. The good news is, though, the numbers in terms of people, following anything that has to do with the NHL on social media is up 224%. That's a huge, huge number of people liking, watching videos, commenting. So definitely it seems as though people are willing to keep their eyeballs on their telephones for a minute or two to watch some highlights or whatever. But then if they got to sit down in front of the TV and watch a whole game, then it's a different ballgame.
No Quebecer at the All-Star game. So members of the media from Quebec down there, and usually there's representation from La Belle Province. Does this say anything to you, or you just think it's a one-off?
Listen, I mean, this is the first time in the history of the NHL that we do not have a player from Quebec in the All-Star game. I find it sad. I find it's a little bit unfortunate. There have been other French-speaking players that have also made it in the past, Claude Giroux, Jonathan Toews, but there's always been at least one representative of Quebec, and usually more than one. We're talking about guys like Christopher Letang, Jonathan Huberdeau. There's been in the last couple of years, Bergeron. We've had obviously the 3 goaltenders that were there for years on end: Roberto Luongo, Martin Brodeur, Patrick Roy, and we had guys that were at the All-Star game. Fleury was there. Giroux was there, even though he's born in Ontario. Fleury was there for a long time till last year. Obviously the Vincent Le Cavaliers and Martin Saint-Louis and all the other ones. And then when we go even more back, there's even more French-speaking players, obviously. But there are none. There's not even one, unfortunately, this time. So I think it's a one-off. But at the same time, the pool is just not the same. When you had those 4 guys that we just mentioned, Fleury, Letang, Luongo, Brodeur, and Roy, you were basically guaranteed to have at least one Quebec representative. But those dominating Quebec goalies, that time is evolved, and we're elsewhere now. So
I don't have the list in front of me, okay, but I'd be willing to bet that at least on one occasion, Giguère must have played in an All-Star game. Crawford must have played in an All-Star game.
Crawford did, absolutely. I think 2015 was his last All-Star game.
Probably Pavin, who used to play, Felix Pavin, who used to play with the Leafs. He probably played in an All-Star game. So they're
probably,
Jose Theodore,
for sure. So, I mean, in the last 20
By the way, I don't
years,
have the stats in front of me. I don't even know if they did. They didn't. How many? I don't know. But I would think logic would say that they did.
Yeah, guys like Briere, we forget, but he was like a guy that went to the All Star game. So yeah, I think the pool is a little bit smaller now. Unfortunately, you do have a few of those players, but Huberdeau didn't have a great start to the year, for example. Same thing for Fleury. So that impeded them a little bit. I think a guy like Bergeron could have been asked to go. I think Claude Giroux definitely, with 20 goals and 48 points, could have been asked to go. They sent Kachuk instead. I don't know if it's because his brother with the Panthers was a big attraction. Maybe they wanted to reunite them both on the ice. I'm not sure. But because of all those circumstances, we don't have a representative from here for this weekend.
So we talked about the ratings being down 22% on ESPN and TNT. You explained it by more games being shown, though, however. One thing that is up is social media views. All
exactly.
Right. And so when the NHL ends up posting like Connor McDavid's goal from the night before type of thing, those views are more so now than ever, which obviously is encouraging. I mean, the opposite would have been discouraging. But what does that tell us exactly? Does that tell us that the interest is there, or does that tell us that the interest is only there because people would rather watch a highlight than watching an entire game?
You know what? I'm going to give you the example of my son, who's a big sports junkie, and he follows basically everything that's going on social media. He doesn't miss one of McDavid's or Ovechkin's goals. He follows them attentively. He wants to know how many points McDavid's going to get this year. He wants to know how fast Ovechkin's going to catch up to Gretzky, and he does watch all those little highlights. Now, my son is, like I said, he's a little bit of a nut, so he also still sits down in front of the TV and watches games. But a lot of the young kids, and he tells me he's in a Sport Études program, and a lot of the players in his sports program don't actually watch games. And this is a new reality, is that they don't, I don't know if they don't have the attention span
You're right about this, Jeremy, because I got two boys myself. One of them is going to be 20 in the month of February, and the other one is going to end up being 18 in the month of March. And they have their favorite sport, and their favorite sport, they watch games. But if it's not their favorite sport and it's a secondary sport, which they also follow, they'll just follow it on social media and just for highlights. And I don't know if the last 3 years made them so dependent on their phones that they weren't going out that much because of reasons that we know. And maybe it's just a force of habit. Or I don't know if it's a new way of watching sports that they just take a look at highlights here and there. But it's concerning. If you're the National Hockey League, as much as you're happy that your social media views are up, you got to be saying, okay, our social media views are up, but our viewership is down. Why are people more interested in watching 1-minute clips than watching a 2.5-hour game? Well, you know, they find the 1-minute clip exciting. They don't find the 2.5-hour game exciting.
Well, there's one thing, and do you remember 20 years ago when Fox had the games and they had that little flash of light behind the puck?
Yeah,
we all laughed. We all laughed because me and you, we've been watching hockey for the last 40 years and we're used to it, okay? But the reality is the game is much, much faster now. And sitting down watching the game with my wife, I find her often saying to me, "Where's the puck?" The puck moves so fast. When there's a slap shot, half the time you don't know if the puck is in the net, if it's hit the glass, if it's in the mesh behind, if the goalie made the save. You don't know. So I think for the average Joe who's not used to watching hockey, you got to find a way to tweak it a little bit to make it easier for people to follow, because the game is so fast that a lot of times you're not really sure exactly what's going on. Where's the puck? The puck moves fast. It disappears. So maybe they weren't so crazy back then. I don't know.
You know what? Maybe you're right. I'm going to throw something else at you.
Yeah.
We know that the number one sport in the United States is football. All right.
Yes.
We know that basketball and baseball come before hockey as well.
Yeah.
But we also know, if you take a look at the Gallup poll and surveys that are done every 6 or 7 years in the States, that the popularity of baseball in the States, the numbers have gone way down in the past couple of years, right? To a point where it's alarming. Why? You know as well as I do, the major reason is the games last too long. So what I'm getting at is this. Knowing that hockey isn't in the blood of our American brothers and sisters as much as football, as much as basketball, and as much as baseball, the fact that, and it's not the end of the world that an average game lasts 2.5 hours, but take a look. The MLS's popularity, it's going higher and higher and higher and higher every day. Why? Because fans know that a soccer game in less than 2 hours,
it's done.
It's done. And we're including an intermission of 17 to 20 minutes. And the National Hockey League, 2.5 hours, once again, it's not the end of the world. But if it's not in their blood to begin with, you got to do something to make it end quicker. And I don't know what they're going to do, because at the end of the day, a 60-minute game is a 60-minute game, and it's going to last 2.5 hours, whether you like it or not. I don't have the solution.
You know what? I think the 2.5-minute TV breaks 3 times a period, now they're at 18 minutes between periods now. 18 minutes. It used to be 15, used to be 17, now it's 18 minutes. I think for a lot of people, if you don't have a good game on your hands and you've switched stations, you might not ever end up coming back to that game. So, that's the advantage that soccer has, is they play a full 45 minutes. There are no commercial breaks. And I don't think the NHL can get around that, because they need that money. They need that revenue, that stream of money. But also, as I mentioned, is the play right now is so fast. And part of what's fun when you're watching a play is to see the development of the play. A lot of times the puck ends up in the back of the net, and you're like, whoa, what happened? Who gave it to what? It deflected off what? Off who? I didn't even see it. And you got to get to the second, third, fourth, fifth replay to say, okay, I understand. Went off this guy. And so, it's fast. It's very, very, very fast.
I hear you. Another thing I think, though, is that I've said this before, Jeremy. Why is football so popular? Because 17 weeks and then you're into the playoffs.
Exactly.
Once a week and that's it. Hockey is on every night, with preseason starting in the 3rd week of September, the regular season's ending in the 2nd week of April, and the Stanley Cup coming out in the end of June, and then the draft in the 3rd week of June, and then free agency in July. People cannot watch hockey every night. They have a life, they have work, they have kids, they have family, they have other interests.
And I think
there's other sports. Sunday is dedicated to football, Monday is dedicated to football, Thursday is dedicated to football. So on those nights, not a good idea for the National Hockey League to go head to head. It's not.
No, you know what? And the thing is, I think that's one of the reasons why the NHL has made this move and transitioned towards sports betting, because they know that people who bet on games watch games. And the reality is, if you're in Dallas and the Dallas Stars play 4 games this week, but the Cowboys only played at one time on Sunday night, then you know that you're going to make time for that Sunday night game. You'll watch it, and then you're done for the week. Whereas the Dallas Stars, might play Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, or whatever it is. And so you didn't watch today, but you'll watch the next one. And, let's say the truth, at 370,000 views per game, it's not much. It's really not much, Tony.
Now,
that number needs to go up.
Okay. So why do people watch hockey to begin with? Number one, when I was growing up, the Canadians and the Bruins, the Canadians and the Bruins.
Yeah.
The Canadians and the Nordiques, the Islanders and the Rangers, the Oilers and the Flames, the Flyers and the Penguins, the Avalanche and the Red Wings. All right. I'm probably missing some here, but there were about 12 teams that were they were involved in rivalries. At the very least, maybe 14 teams that were involved in rivalries. And they used to play each other 6 times a year, or they used to play each other 8 times a year. We just saw the Canadians and the Bruins for the first time 2 weeks ago. It doesn't make sense. If I was the commissioner of this league, and by the way, he celebrated, Gary Bettman did his 30-year anniversary as commissioner of the league yesterday. If I was the commissioner of the league, I'd have a lot more games between teams that have a history. I'd have a lot more rivalry games. And Jeremy, I'm going to finish with this. I would have 2 games in 3 nights, and I would have them in the same city. This way you avoid travel. So I'm going to give an example. And I said this earlier tonight on GEC at TVA Sport on television. I said, let's just say the Canadians play the Bruins on a Thursday night and a Saturday night, and both games are in Montreal. You get the Boston media coming to Montreal on the Wednesday, and they start preparing the whole stuff and all the interviews and all the players. You start pumping up the game. Then on Thursday, the media is there back again. It's game day, all the interviews, all that stuff. Then you have the game on Thursday night. On the Friday, then you have the post-game show. You have the post-game with everyone in the room and all the clips and all the audio. And then on the Friday, you have morning skates, and then the media is back at it again. And they're not only talking about the game from the night before, but they're preparing the tables for, you know, the game that's going to take place the following night. That's what I would do. You avoid travel. You avoid it for media, especially for players. Players are more fresh. I'd actually take some games off of the schedule as well, because if you take 1 or 2 games per month off of the schedule, you're going to avoid some 3s and 4s. You're going to avoid some 4s and 6s. This is the way I would tackle it. And then the other thing I would do, you have to try and find a way to score more goals again. Fans that watch, they don't watch for defensive hockey, Jeremy. They want to see goals.
Yeah. Well, listen, we actually had a chance to talk to Gary Bettman last week about this very subject. And, you know, he's very attached and fond of the idea of every team needs to face every team at home and away, which is a philosophy. You know, a lot of people will say, you know what, my team is the Anaheim Ducks, and I want to be able to go see them once a year at the Bell Center if that's the case. So, and vice versa. So if you want to do what you're trying to say, then you need to also limit the games that you play against the Metropolitan Division. That means you're only facing the Rangers once at home, once away. Same thing for the Penguins, same thing for the Capitals. If you're willing to make that sacrifice, then you could probably go up to 4 games per division, which is a minimum, according to me. It's got to be minimum 4 games. Because at 3 games right now, with your first one in January, and your last 2 might even be meaningless, and they will be meaningless between the Canadiens and the Bruins, because the Bruins will be in. They'll probably have clinched first place. The Habs will be out. You know, what's the interest there?
I hear you, Jeremy. Let's get to the skills competition, which will take place tomorrow night. What is the chip and puck competition?
Okay, so the chip and puck competition, I can't explain it exactly because a lot of the stuff has not been told to us. They want to keep an element of surprise. But what I can tell you is that the chip and puck was already filmed, and it happened on the Fort Lauderdale beach. And what I can tell you is Canadiens captain Nick Suzuki participated in that, and there were also a few PGA professionals that were there with him. I know he had a lot of fun. I think it involves golf clubs, golf balls, but also hockey sticks and pucks. I'm not sure 100%. The way they set it up here in Florida, Tony, is that there's a sort of how can I explain it? There's a big setup on the beach here in Fort Lauderdale where fans can visit. They have a museum which has been moved here. There are a lot of former All-Stars, NHL All-Stars that are here signing autographs, taking pictures. We have a lot of memorabilia that's here. They've sort of put together a little ice rink for people to be able to jump on and try it. Pretty sure it's artificial, but whatever. That's besides the point. So there's a lot of things going on here, and that's where they had that little event with Nick Suzuki. So when you're going to watch it live on Friday night, well, it will have been pre-recorded, and they're keeping it pretty hush-hush on exactly what happened and how it works.
And they probably did that for a number of reasons, but one of them is probably they want to have some fantastic shots, so they probably did a couple of takes, right, until they ended up getting a fantastic shot, and they're probably using the best of some of those shots that you talked about from earlier today. All right.
Yeah. So there's contest. There's a dunking contest, exactly, which I think was also pre-recorded, but I'm not sure. So you have to hit targets, and I think they will have players or media members or fans sitting there with the jersey of the opposing team. And if you hit the target, then he gets dunked, just like it was in the old days when you went
into the water.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
That's pretty good, because you know what? There's so many ideas that you can do to spice up a skills competition. I've never really found that the skills competition has been all that good. I was surprised to hear today that the ratings for the NHL skills competition are actually superior to the NBA's, because I thought the NBA's slam dunk competition is like a real happening. But anyway, we'll see what happens there. You spoke to Suzuki. You talked to him about the captaincy?
Yes. He talked about the captaincy, the good things and the bad things. Obviously, he said, these first 50 games have given him a lot of experience, a lot of food for thought, obviously, but it hasn't been easy. And he was very clear about it. And he didn't really talk about, issues about having to talk to the media or stuff like that. by the way, Suzuki hasn't been as available as he usually has been in these last couple of weeks, and that's okay. A lot of guys from the Rockets were up and they were performing well, so we talked to those guys instead, and that was fine. But Suzuki said that he understands that this team is not going to be winning anytime soon. But at the same time, there is some built-up frustration there. He admitted that he went up to Kent Hughes' office more than once to talk about these frustrations. He's trying to live the process and understand it and follow through with it. But at the same time, it hasn't been easy. He also hasn't found it easy to lose both of his assistants for extended periods of time. Gallagher, Edmondson. The good news is he talked a lot about David Savard and the help that he's offered to support him in the dressing room. A lot of praises for David Savard. But
it's good.
We're talking with Nick today for almost a half hour.
Oh yeah,
just talking about everything. Some of it was recorded, some of it was not. He's a shy guy, Tony. He's a really shy guy. And at one point, he talked about, I got to take my place and say things to players at certain times in games, which was not natural for him. And he said that. It's not natural for him, in his shy personality. He's not going to go up to Mike Hoffman and tell him, hey, why are you doing this like this? Why are you not doing it like that? He's not there yet. And this is why I said at the beginning, I don't have a problem with Nick Suzuki being the captain of the Canadiens. I would have preferred if it was in a couple of years from now.
Me too. But he's done a good job, though. But he's done a good job. But you know what? That he's supported by Edmondson and Gallagher because they could do that because they're not shy.
Yeah, but they're not there right now. That's the reality. Yeah. So he has to rely on a guy like David Savard. But the reality is the pressure hasn't really been there this year, Tony, because we don't have any expectations. So whatever happens with the team, we just say to ourselves, you know what? It's just going to be a losing season. So there isn't that added pressure on his shoulders at this moment from the media. But if next year the team on paper looks better and they still don't win, that's when he's going to start finding it tough, I think.
A shout out to Playground with over 600 machines, poker tournaments, and Playground casino games, daily promotions, and unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. All right. Speaking of Suzuki, his line mate, Cole Caulfield, man, where they are on fire together at the beginning of the season. They put up big numbers, goals, and points. Cole Caulfield, take a look at this picture that he put on his Instagram a couple of hours ago. Yeah. There he is. He says, be back soon. And he was operated earlier today on his shoulder. He had shoulder surgery. I believe it was Dr. Peter Millett in Colorado. And taking a look at the smile on his face or his reaction, it looks like the operation was successful. Yeah. And we hope so.
Suzuki spoke to Cole Caulfield today after the operation. He said that he still sounded a little groggy, to tell you the truth. But, he admitted that he thought that this was going to be a tough period for Cole Caulfield. He said this type of player, to keep him away from the rink for 6 to 9 months, depending on how much time it's going to take him, it's going to be really tough psychologically. I mean, obviously he knows that he'll come out stronger, but he said himself, I've never had this type of surgery, but I know how tough it would be on me, and I know how tough it is on him to keep him away from the rink. He is going to be heading back to Wisconsin for the period being. Going to go meet up with some family, rest up, and then probably get back to Montreal towards the end of the year to slowly start training again.
Okay, very quickly in a couple of minutes, I want to talk to you about Bo Horvat, Connor McDavid, and Alexander Ovechkin. Let's start with Horvat. He was involved in the deal traded to the Islanders. Did he talk about the possibility of him re-signing on the island?
Yeah, I actually asked him that question specifically today, and he said, listen, I haven't really given it that much thought. I've just been traded. He hasn't actually, reported to the Islanders yet. He will right after the All Star game. What's going to be weird, just a little sidebar here, is that he'll be wearing an Islanders jersey, but he'll be playing for the Pacific because otherwise it doesn't work out. So he's like, that's going to be weird, but that's the way it's going to be. So he said that he's open to signing with the Islanders. He said that he has a tremendous amount of respect for the organization, for Lou Lamoriello, and that if an offer was placed, that he would consider it seriously. Now, I mean, I'm guessing and I was expecting that type of answer from him. Does that mean he actually means it? I don't know. But what he said is, look, right now I just want to focus on the hockey. I want to find a place for my family to live. I'm happy to be with the Islanders. Super excited. But at this point in time, I mean, it's tough to say if he'll resign. But look, Lamoriello has made this type of move before. Pajot came in a few years back, if you remember well, from the Sens, and everybody said, you know, he's going to be a rental. They're going to lose him. And they were able to convince him to stick around. So let's see what happens.
The best players in the game usually end up winning a cup. They don't always do, but in the National Hockey League, I mean, over the last 10 or 15 years, Patrick Kane won his cup, and Jonathan Toews won his cup, and Evgeny Malkin won his cup, and Sidney Crosby won his cup, and last year Nathan McKinnon won his cup. Connor McDavid still has not won the Stanley Cup. I know you had a chance to talk to him. I would imagine he was asked about the parity in the league and whether or not this is the year for the Oilers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he didn't say anything convincing. He didn't say any statement like, you know, we're going to go out there, we're going to win the cup this year. He talked a lot about the parity. I'm not sure he's a great fan of it, to tell you the truth. I think he would like to be in a league where, you know, there's that sort of rotation where the good teams are dominant for a while, and then they might go into that rebuilding phase. In the NHL, you know, teams bounce back, and he explained it himself. He's like, you can think for 2 weeks that a team is hot, and then all of a sudden they lose 4 straight games. That's the reality of the NHL. But we talked to McDavid about scoring goals, and you know, we asked him if there were any players out there that he looks at specifically in order to get tips or to improve his game, and he named 2 guys, Austin Matthews and Sidney Crosby, are the 2 guys that he says he looks at, tries to take notes from, tries to learn, tries to improve his game day in and day out. So, but I got to tell you, today, Tony, it was all about, you know, McDavid. Every player we spoke to had something to say about McDavid, and they're all in awe. Yeah, and including Ovechkin, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of
Ovechkin,
Ovechkin, I mean, the major story is that Gretzky's 894 are within his grasp, right? And he's probably, you know, it's no longer if, it looks like it's when. He must have been pretty excited about that. And you know, the fact that he's still scoring goals with regularity at his age. I mean, it's this guy's superhuman. I mean, he's like Popeye. He must eat his spinach every day.
That's what I said. Is like when he was talking about McDavid, and the thing that impressed him the most about McDavid was the consistency. And if there's one guy who's been consistent over the last, you know, 15 years in the NHL, it's Alex Ovechkin. I mean, he's still at his age today. And I asked him that question specifically. How do you keep being so consistent? And he said, listen, 2 things. You got to be in shape, and you got to avoid injuries. You got to be healthy, right? So he's had those 2. He's avoided injuries his whole career. But when he was asked, and it was actually J.F. Chaumont from Journal that asked him, you know, about the record. And he said, you know what? For the longest time, I thought to myself, it's going to be impossible. Like, I'm not going to be able to continue scoring at this pace into the age where I'm going to need to be scoring those goals in order to reach that goal. He goes, but right now, I keep producing. So he says, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm taking it one goal at a time. I don't want to think too far. But he said for the longest time, I didn't think it was going to be possible.
What was the weather like today in Florida? And what is it going to be overlay in the next week or so?
Fan-freaking-tastic. I'm sitting on the balcony right now in my shorts, and it's, I don't know, 24 degrees maybe Celsius. It's going to be sunny every single day, about 29 degrees for the next 2 weeks that I'll be here. I can't say enough about the weather down here, my friend. It's my 3rd time down to Florida this winter. And you know what? I wish I could take all of Quebec with me down to Florida. There are a lot of Quebecers down here, obviously, in and around the hotels where the players are at. A lot of French Canadians are here wanting to get some autographs and stuff. But, I mean, you know, Florida is le petit Quebec, right? And every time I see a senior citizen in Quebec walking on the sidewalk in the snow, on the ice patches, I think to myself, no senior citizen should have to live through that. They should all be down here like my parents are down here enjoying themselves, and that's it.
Jeremy Filosa, you live the way I dream, and I'll leave you with a question. Who's better than you? Nobody.
Right now, nobody.
Nobody. Jeremy, have a great night. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Ciao, bello.
Jeremy Filosa of 98.5 FM and EMFC Radio, along with Gavino Di Falco. Yet another edition of the Sick Podcast. Marinaro, tell your friends about it. Message Sick right now, S-I-C-K, if you're loving this podcast. Share it with your friends if you're watching on Facebook and or on YouTube. And leave us a 5-star review if you listen on Google, Apple, or Spotify. Be true to yourself. I am. You should be too. Same time, same place, tomorrow night, the Sick Podcast, starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different, 8.6, intense by nature, and Laraque. If the last time you went to Laraque was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to Laraque. The menu will surprise you.